Hello. So I'm going to be walking you through how to create your three-dimensional structure model squid. And just to give you kind of an idea of what it's supposed to look like when it's done, here's an example of a completed model. I created this, I colored it. Remember, the coloring is extra credit. If you really don't want to, that's okay, you don't have to. This is the dorsal side, which is the back side of the squid. The front ventral side is located here. And if you were to dissect a specimen in order to study its internal mechanisms, you would be cutting down through the center of its body, or the ventral side, to show all of the internal organs below. The color coding can really be helpful, again, in helping you to remember which system is associated with different colors. So reproductive system here, I have both the male and female reproductive organs represented in this model, although in real life a squid would be either a male or a female. But in any case, one of the first things I notice are the hearts and the gills. Underneath that, you'll find the reproductive structures that are yellow. You don't have to really notice this in great detail. I'm just kind of showing you the final product. In green, we have all of the major digestive system organs, and then the muscular flexible structure called the pen, which is kind of like a rudimentary backbone that allows it to be supported in the body. At the very, very bottom of it, you're going to have the inside of the mantle, which just has some nerve fibers to show that brain connects to the rest of the body, sending messages, so on and so forth. That's a really abbreviated explanation, but I'm trying to make this short, and it's probably going to be a really long video. In the front, you have the head with the two eyes. Underneath that, when I lift it up, you will see not much. This is just the fleshy part underneath the head, but we've got two long feeding tentacles that grasp prey and bring them into their mouth. The arms are more just to hold onto things to prevent them from swimming away, and also to hold each other during the mating ritual. Just underneath the head, we have the buccal bulb, which is colored here in green, and the two halves of the beak, pictured here uncolored at the bottom, that pinches and kills prey. The buccal bulb is just a muscular system that opens and closes the mouth. So that's what we're going to try to make. I've got all my little parts and pieces here, so I'm also just going to be reading through the instructions just as you are going to, but there's a few things that I thought were kind of hard to understand in the instructions, so hopefully putting it together with you will be a help. And if not, if this is not helpful, stop watching it and just read the instructions. Okay, so step one. It says to find the dorsal mantle and the internal mantle. The dorsal mantle is located right here. It's number 1, and it has these two triangular stripes on the side of it, or in the center of it. The internal mantle is this piece right here. Okay, find that one. So it says to apply glue to the back of the internal piece. So we're going to put glue all around the outside here, and then align it to the back side of the dorsal. So glue here, smush them together. I just put glue on the perimeter. Use sparingly. You don't want to go crazy, because then you're going to end up gluing the entire model together. And there's supposed to be some movement between the pieces. So line it up as carefully as you can. I'm going to be going through this as fast as I can, so I'm not paying crucial attention to detail. I would like for you to do a little bit of a better job than me. But when you get them glued together, they should look like this. Step 1, complete. Step 2 says to find the dorsal swimming fins and the ventral swimming fins. Fold the triangular tabs SF1 on the black line of the ventral swimming fin so they are out of the way. So these two are together. You have to cut them apart, but you'll notice it's number 3. This is the ventral swimming fins. This one, number 3 also, is the dorsal swimming fins. So when it says to fold these out of the way, it's talking about these little triangular pieces, and basically you're just going to fold them kind of backwards. So I'm going to take this piece and fold this behind it, just like that. Okay, there's the main piece. I have folded out of the way that little triangular strip behind it. So you're going to do that with both of the pieces. Ultimately, this is going to get glued onto the dorsal mantle that you were just gluing together in the previous step, where we go. Where these two pieces line up that say SF, that's where that little strip that you just folded back is going to get glued onto. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Going back to the instructions, I've folded the tabs out of the way, and now it says, apply glue to the back of the ventral swimming fins and align to the back side of the dorsal swimming fins. So you're gluing them together very much the same way that you did the dorsal and internal mantle. So in order to do that, this bold stripe in the middle of the dorsal swimming fins, you have to cut that up. Not cut it up, but cut through it. Ta-da. So now, it looks way better if these are colored. It looks kind of silly to have them blank, but I'm again just trying to be quick to show you the steps. So what we're going to be doing is basically taking that first, this would be colored or at least shaded in if you're using the different, regardless, whatever version you are using, whether the one that you colored personally or the one that has that sort of grayscale shaded in, that side would be shaded in or colored if you decided to color it. So you're just going to match up the other piece and glue them together. So this is the front where there would be color. On the back of that is where you're going to glue down the other piece of the fin, the other side. Okay. Glue that down. Ta-da. I didn't match it up that great, but that's okay. All right, so then the other half, again, I have folded back away this little tab. On the back of that is where I'm going to be adding glue. So you don't want to completely squish down the tab and glue on top of that. You want it to still sort of be hanging out there. But on this side is where you're going to add glue, and then not the side that has the number, but the other side is where you're going to glue it together. So it'll be color and color on either side. I hope I don't go through this entire video and the audio is really terrible. Let's cross our fingers. Okay. So these pieces are done. Now we are going to attach them to the mantle, and more specifically the dorsal side. This is going to be this when it's all said and done. So basically, where you have both of these tabs, SF, well, let me just go ahead and read through the step officially. It says, apply glue to the tabs SF1, and attach the swimming fan assembly by tabs SF1 to SF on the dorsal mantle. So line them up to make sure you're doing the right side, but basically, here's the dorsal side of the mantle. Here's your fin. You're going to glue the strip that you bent back and place it gently onto the corresponding triangle. So it's going to end up being glued on like this and like this together. And that's it. Pretty simple, actually. It's just a lot of weird, I don't know, for some reason when I was reading through the instructions, maybe it's just me, I thought they were kind of confusing, at least the first few steps. Particularly this fin one, because I couldn't figure out which one was the fin. Which side was the right side to use for the fin. I could figure out the shape. Anyway, go ahead and glue this on. This is so sloppy. Da-da-da. Wait, it goes like that. Just kidding. If you realize you have put something on the wrong side, that's okay. Elmer's glue is a little bit forgiving as long as you notice it within the first couple of minutes so that you can undo it. So there we go. My final piece here, I've got the fins glued onto the dorsal side of the body, and if I flipped it over, eventually this side's going to be covered up too, but you can see both sides of the fin from either side. Again, if it's colored, it looks better, so here's my example. You can see that these are the same structures, but because I glued them together, when you bend them back, both sides have color. That's really the only benefit to doing it this way. So let's move on. The next step says find the ventral mantle. Okay, that's this guy. Cut the ventral mantle on the solid black line down the middle. Apply glue to the top of each tab M1 of the two ventral mantle pieces once you cut them apart. Let's do that now. Step 1, cut the black line right down the center. Watch your fingers. Fold. Fold. On the inside of the main body section here that you've created, this is the inner mantle, you'll see a little tab that says M and M on either side. Fold the tabs under and attach the tabs M1 to M on the internal mantle. You should not be able to see the tab name when applied correctly. So what we're going to do, these are basically going to be little doors that open because, again, if you were dissecting a specimen, you would cut through the ventral side of the body. So line it up before you add glue, but basically this is what you're going to be creating. Rather than gluing it down straight, you're only gluing that little tab that says M1, and you're going to glue the tab, again, the tab M1 here to the M, just like that. Let it dry for a couple seconds and it should allow you to open and close this flap of the mantle. It doesn't really matter where you apply the glue, the M tab or the M1 tab, just pick one and add, enough to where it's going to stick, but not so much that it just oozes out and gets all over everything, because then you're going to have a harder time making it not stick to every other piece that you add to it. Okay, so here's a close-up of what I've done so far. I added glue to both of the tabs, M1, M1 to M, line it up, hold it for about a minute. When it dries, they should both be able to open and close like little doors. Oops. Okay, while we're waiting for that to dry, let's move on. So the next step, I believe, is to add the pen. We're on number 5, if you're following along in the notes. Number 5 says, apply glue to the tab and attach the pen by tab A1 over A on the internal mantle. All right, so everything is labeled. That is something that's kind of nice. The pen, or A1, is this structure right here. A1 is at the bottom, so just look for that. And once your mantle is dry and you can kind of gently open it up, you're going to see the corresponding A right here on the bottom. So keep in mind that you want to be able to see everything, so anything that has a label on it or design on it or coloring on it, that's what you want to be facing out from the model. You don't want to face it into the model, because then you're not going to be able to see it, and it sort of defeats the helpfulness of creating this entire form. So where it says A1, on the back of that, we're going to add a little bit of glue, or in this box that says A, you can add glue right there in the box and cover up the A. That is the route I am going to take. So add a little bit of glue to box labeled A. Find your pen that has A1 at the bottom, and I am simply going to glue it on just like this so that the shape is all going the same way. And I'm going to glue, let's hold it this way, that's a little bit easier. I'm going to glue it right on top just like this. You can let it rest there at the bottom so that it dries a little bit better, but it'll look like that when you're done. This whole part is movable. You can bend it out, you can fold it in, but it will stay right there in that little tab. Number 6, apply glue to the tab and attach the funnel retractor muscles by tabs F1 over F on the internal mantle. So we just glued A down here at the very bottom. We're now going to be gluing onto the 2 boxes that have an F. So on this side and this side, doesn't really matter which one you start with, but we're going to look for the corresponding F1 structures, which you have colored in or that came colored for you. Here they are. They look kind of like little candles or something. These, again, are going to be muscles that allow the siphon to open and close or contract, which is what allows water to come into the body and get pushed out. It's their main locomotion muscle, so it's really, really important. It also forces the funnel to be oriented one direction or another. So if they want to swim to the left or to the right, these muscles help to guide that process. So we are simply going to add either glue to the back of this F1 box and glue it right onto the F box, or you're going to find the F tab and add glue directly onto the F in both places and glue these guys in right on top of them. One here and one here. You really don't need much glue at all for this one because they're really small boxes, so don't go crazy, just one little dot. Okay, when you're done, it should look like this. Moving on. Where am I? Number 7, ooh, the head part. Okay, so we're gonna put this entire structure together now, and there's lots of layers. You have the dorsal side of the head, which is gonna be the back of the head. You have the inner mechanisms, including the brain, some main key nerves here, and the cheek muscles, the mouth, and the beak, which is the hard, sharp structure that basically kills their prey, strikes their prey. Underneath that, you're going to have just sort of a fleshy bulb, and on the back of it, to represent the fact that this could be front or back, you have the ventral side, or kind of the front of the face, which means you need a lot of pieces for this one. So luckily things are labeled. So first we're going to start, it says find the ventral head / arms. There's one nice thing here. Ventral starts with a V. Look for the head that has a V on top. That's the ventral side of the head. Then it says to find the internal head. It's not very well labeled, but that's this one. Ventral side of the head, internal head. Very, very easy. You are simply going to be gluing the back of this tab onto the back of this side of the head. So you can see they only line up one way to make them fit perfectly. So you're just going to glue them together just like that. The V, make sure it's the V. D3, they get glued together right where they align, right where they match up. I feel like it seems like I'm adding a lot more glue than I am. Okay, so ta-da! Back of the head, ventral side of the head. Apply glue to the tab and attach the tentacles by tab T1 to tab T. Okay, so that same piece that we have been working with, the ventral side of the head, on the back of it where you have this little box that says T, that is where you are going to be gluing on your tentacles. Okay, just like this. They should be facing opposite directions. In other words, the part that has detail, either color or at least just this detailed side of it, they shouldn't be facing the same way as the ventral side of the head. They should be facing the opposite way of this side of the head, because you're building it kind of from the back to the front of the body, or at least of the model. So the nice thing about that, to kind of prevent you from messing it up, is that, again, you're just lining up the T to the T. So T1 is going to get glued right on top of T. If you don't want them to be seen, you can fold back. Let me show you what I'm doing. You can fold back the T1 tab so that you don't see T1 sticking out in your model and you just see the tentacles. I think it looks a little nicer. So when you fold it back like that, same thing. You can apply a little bit of glue there and then stick it right to the T tab. So it's going to end up going like that. And that's how I'm going to do it. All right. Apply glue to the tab and attach the buccal mass and beak by tab D2 over D3 on the internal head. It's just saying you're going to keep adding layers to the top. So here's D3. Basically, we're going to be adding something on top of this. What are we adding? Oh, look, it's the same shape. So D2 goes right on top of D3. Pretty simple. Add glue only to the tabs. You don't want to glue the entire thing on. Again, the whole point of this exercise is to be able to see the different layers. So D2 onto D3. You don't have to fold any of the tabs back. You can just leave them as they are, because this whole thing is going to get glued onto, I think it's the pen, that long structure that we saw on the ventral side of the squid. So it doesn't really matter. When you're done, it should look like this. The buccal bulb and the beak should be facing the same direction as the tentacles, and then when you flip the whole thing over, you'll see the ventral side of the head. Number 10, apply glue to the tab and attach the dorsal head. So now the last main piece that looks like the head, also D for dorsal, D1. So we're going to apply this guy over the basically over the last structure, D2. D1 goes on top of D2, which was on top of D3. It all goes in order. That's kind of nice too. Sort of intuitive, right? Hopefully. So just on the tab, I'm adding glue onto D2. And then I'm going to take D1 and simply press it on to D2. Just like that. Oops. If you have time, you can let it sit there for about a minute and dry. Otherwise, moving on to the next step, we have created all the different layers that we need for the head. You've got the dorsal side. Underneath that, you have the mouth and the brain. Underneath that, you just have more of a mass that has the large feeding tentacles coming out. And if you flip it over, you can see part of the eyes because they're on the sides of the head and the rest of the body that way. So number 11 is to basically attach the head to the body that we created earlier on, steps 1 through 5 or 6. This one, you have to go back and find A1 again for this. It says, apply glue to the top of tab D3. That's a mistake, they mean D1. Of the head assembly, and attach it face down to tab A1 of the pen. Okay. Let me make sure I did this part right earlier. Okay. So D1 right here is going to get attached to A1 right here. Keep in mind that the orientation of the squid, the head is attached in this direction, not in this direction. So if it seems really awkward, it probably is wrong. When you glue it in, you're going to want to make sure the D1 is glued onto directly the A1, which means you're going to have to flip it over, and the V side is what will be facing out towards you from the model, which makes sense because remember, this is the ventral side of the mantle. So this should also be the ventral side of the head showing, facing you. So glue D1 tab onto A1 tab. We're getting there. There's a few more pieces, but you're hanging in there. Good job. Okay, so I don't want this to fall off because it's not dry yet, but we're getting somewhere. Looks like a squid now, which is kind of cool. We need to add a few of the major body systems. We need to add in the reproductive system, we need to add the digestive system, the circulatory system, and the actual funnel, because so far we just have the muscles that are making it go one way or the other. So there are a total of 5 structures left to add in. Okay, the next one we're going to be doing is the digestive system. So for number 12, it says to apply glue to the tab and attach the digestive system, which is this one right here. You've got all those major digestive organs. Some of them are very similar to what we have in our body. The esophagus is part of that, the intestines, you've got the stomach. We don't have a cecum, but that's kind of like their version of the small intestines. Anyway, it's called V1, so you're looking for the V1 tab, and you're going to be gluing the V1 tab onto the V tab that we just finally added in when we attached the head to the rest of the mantle. Now, think about this logically. This is part of the internal anatomy, so it should be facing this way, not dangling down with the head, because it's inside the body. So you're going to glue the V1 tab directly onto the V tab and nothing else. Again, you want to be able to move these around so that you can manipulate the model and learn from it and at least understand the different layers of the organ systems. So I didn't glue this one. I glued the V box or the V tab on the body, and I'm going to just be on the back of this, placing it down. I want the detail to face out from the model so that I can actually use it and learn from it in a helpful way. So it should look like this when you're done. You've got the organs facing out. V1 is now what is facing up towards you, which is important because that's what we're going to be using in the next step. That takes us to the end of the first page. And this is the second page, so we're almost there. All right, number 13. It says to find the appropriate gonads, and that's referring to whether or not your squid is a male or a female. So the difference is in ovaries versus testes, to be frank. That's the basic difference. This one is a female, this one is a male. Even though squid have separate sexes within the species, they're a female squid or they're a male squid, to show the location, we're going to use both in this model. So it doesn't really matter which one you add first. They're going to go one on top of the other. The placement you will be able to determine by the center box that has a 0, 1 and a 0, 1 in both of them. Where it matches up, you have to go back to the model. This is why you have to do everything in order too, because it layers on top of each other. But there's a 0 right in the middle of the digestive system that we just glued in on the V1 tab. This 0 right here, in this little box, that is the tab that you're going to be attaching the gonads to. So, on the back of the 0, 1 tab is where you're going to add glue, or the front box here that has a 0, you can add a blob of glue, just 1 drop right here as well. Doesn't matter which one you do. So if you put 1 drop of glue directly on the 0, you're going to line up this gonad. This one is the female one. Doesn't matter, you can do the female first or the male first, that's the testes. You're going to be adding them both. So line it up and just kind of press lightly so that it sticks on right there. I'm going to add the female first just because it takes up a little bit more space. And since we're kind of layering it from back to front, I think it'll be a little bit easier to see the male gonads if I add the female first. So I added right on the 0 box, the 0, 1. Now I'm going to add a drop of glue onto this one, onto the 0, 1. And right in that same spot, line up and press the 0, 1 box for the male gonad right on top of that one. Again, make sure they are facing the right direction. Everything should be facing up towards you. So there you go. So right here, I added this, the male gonad on top of the female gonad in the same place. That takes care of digestive system, that takes care of reproductive system. We just have to finish up circulatory, respiratory, and that funnel contractor, or the funnel actually. Apply glue to the tab and attach the circulatory and respiratory system by tab 02 over 01 of the gonads. Okay, so what does that mean? Where we just left off, the 01 tab, you're going to add another blob of glue. And what are you going to put on that blob of glue? You're going to add in the circulatory and respiratory system. These are the three hearts, okay? Branchial heart, systemic heart. Systemic heart sends blood to the body. Branchial heart sends blood to the gills. These are the gills to pick up oxygen to go back to the rest of the body. So we're going to add a blob of glue here to the 01. We're going to line it up with the 02 and just glue it right there. Nowhere else, because again, you want to have some movement. You want to be able to peel back the layers and see what all the different structures are. So blob of glue right here, and then press on the 02. Okay, it'll look like this. And the very, very last thing to add is the siphon. This is the siphon, and it kind of turns one way or the other, up or down, based on the way that the retractor muscles are pulling against it. So this is helpful because it's going to allow the squid to move different directions in the water instead of just forwards or backwards. The fins help to angle the body as well to it. Oh my gosh, I can't speak right now. But anyway, the fins as well as the siphon help it to steer as well as to move and propel itself through the water. So for this one, you are going to want to fold back these little tabs that have F2 on them. So just fold them back at the crease on either side. You're going to apply glue to the actual boxes that have F2. And the very last step is to carefully line them up and glue them onto the F1 boxes on either side of the V1 tab that has attached the head to the rest of the body. So once you add glue onto the F2 tabs, or if you want, again, you can add glue directly to the F1 tabs. It doesn't really matter, but you're going to really carefully line it up. It faces this way, not this way. Actually, just kidding. It does go that way. It's going to hang down like this. Adding my tabs now. Da, 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 da. The last one. All right, so final structure, going to look like this. Fold the bay doors or the ventral side of the mantle, and we have excuse me, we have a complete model, and that only took us 33 minutes. Fantastic. Good job, you guys. Thanks for hanging in there.